Hey guys, Jordan here. Today we're checking out the new Intel 250K Plus and 270K Plus. Now, after the somewhat disappointing launch from the 200 series, we're all waiting for Intel to pull something out of the bag with this refresh, and it looks like they finally brought the heat. Now, alongside some seriously aggressive pricing, Intel's pulled off a few clever software tweaks to squeeze even more juice out of these CPUs. The 270K Plus offers the same cores and threads as the £500 285K, but lands at $299. The 250K also sits at $199, and if you're in the UK, I'll link scan my go-to down below. I expect they'll also have some nice launch day bundles with some good savings, so it might be worth checking out. For you US folks, I'll also have alternative Amazon links down there as well. Now, as always, I'll put these through the ringer along a bunch of other CPUs. We've tested 7 in total. We've got the 9700X, 9800X3D, Core Ultra 5, 245K, 265K, 285K, and of course the new Ultra 5 and Ultra 7. So before we jump into the results, let's talk about the changes and the new software tweaks that Intel have added in this refresh. First of all, we've got a nice bump in the official supported memory speeds. QDIM also pushed that higher than standard UDIMs, but with the memory market right now, QDIMs are about twice the price of standard UDIMs, so realistically, unless you're in a pro setting, it might not be worth the stretch. The Ultra 5 250K is an 18-core, 18-thread part, with the 270K Plus coming in at 24 cores and 24 threads, much like the 285K, but a much lower price. For software tweaks, first up we've got Intel Application Optimization, a feature that fine-tunes thread scheduling and threads for certain games, boosting performance up to 21 supported titles by aligning them better with your hardware. APO comes as part of the Intel Platform Performance Package, but once installed it's enabled by default. Now, we've also got Intel Binary Optimization, which works by recognizing known application code patterns and dynamically streamlines them. It also doesn't need the source code, which is very clever. However, it only supports 12 titles for now. It's currently opt-in, but I think of it like DLSS, but for CPU efficiency. Now, for our test setup, I've tested everything on the MSI Z890 Ace and also the MPG X870E Carbon Max Wi-Fi. I'll also have a video on this board coming out soon. Both of the boards are on the latest BIOS from March, and I've also run NVIDIA driver version 595.79. For cooling, trusty NHD15. I also use a thermal pad on every CPU to keep it consistent, and we talk about the thermals later on as well. Memory is a kit of Trident Z 32GB CAS34 from G.Skill, running at 7200 megatransfers per second using XMP or DOCP. And then for storage, we've got a Seagate Firecooler 530 on the Intel side and a Solidigm P44 Pro on that AMD side, and the whole rig is powered by a Corsair 1500 watt power supply. Now, I've used the MSI boards this time and also switched over to the 5090, which makes the charts easier to read since the performance gaps are larger. Now, speaking of charts, I've benched everything at 1080p, and if you're wondering why reviewers do that, check out the hardware unbox video. They've explained it really well, but TLDR, it just makes the spotting the differences a lot easier, especially when compared to negligible differences at 1440p or 4K. So first of all, let's look at 3D Time Spy, and it's still Nomad. For raw power, the 270K Plus and 250 Plus perform really strongly. We always expect good performance from Intel in these tests, especially with mixed workloads, but it's great to see that they're still right up there and in some cases pulling ahead of the other Intel counterparts, especially the more expensive 285K. When we shift to Cinebench though, we do get slightly out-edged by the 285K. Honestly, that could just be within the margin of error on a couple of runs. When we ran through the game benchmarks, the AMD processors dominate the charts, as we kind of expect that given their huge L3 cache, especially with the X3D. That is a true gaming beast. But it's also worth noting that the AMD Ryzen 7 9700X is a $300 CPU, right in that sweet spot and comparable to the 270K Plus. And yes, in some of those titles it does fall behind the AMD chips, but we do need to remember that Intel's always been more than just gaming. The X3D shines in games, but Intel still holds its ground as a versatile productivity powerhouse, so it really depends on what you need that CPU to do. Now, with the certain tests that support IPPP and binary optimization, starting with Geekbench 6, which you can also download and compare if you'd like to, the 270K Plus with IPPP rockets to the top. 300 points above the 285K, and even without the software, it's only 150 points behind. Also, the 250K Plus with the IPPP is 400 points higher than without, and even turning IPPP off, it still blows past the 245K by around 2,000 points. Now, when we go to the game benchmarks that support IPPP, the Ryzen 7 9800X3D still leads the pack. There's nowhere where it doesn't dominate in the game titles. Cyberpunk is close, especially with ray tracing. It hits around 156 frames average, while the 9700X is at 150. However, the X3D still pulls ahead with a better 1% low, but exactly what we expect from the level 3 cache. The 270K Plus still performs really well on Cyberpunk without ray tracing around 20 frames higher than the 9700X, which is a perfect like-for-like price comparison. In other titles it stays close, Shadow of the Tomb Raider for example trailing with an average of 218, but the 9800X hits 291, while the X3D is absolutely ridiculous here at 347. Far Cry 6 is similar, just a few frames behind, around 5 frame difference for the 250K Plus and 10 frames for the 270K Plus. I also took a look at the wattage as well. The 270K Plus was a 756 watts overall. That is a little bit higher when using the software, but when turning that off it is closer to the 285K, which makes sense given it's got the same 24 core, 24 thread setup. The 250K is also close to the 265K, again 18 cores, 18 threads, so we do expect a higher power draw. Beyond that it's just kind of expected, you've got a lot of cores, so it's no surprise they're going to pull extra wattage. Finally, temperatures, the 270K maxes out at 94 degrees, the same as the 285K, even without the software it stays at 94. I also do want to note I am using a thermal pad, so using thermal paste would give you a cooler result, but I did want to keep it consistent so we could easily compare. The 250K is pretty cool, especially with IPPP given the extra cores, just about 4 degrees warmer than the 245K, but for those extra 4 cores it's a solid trade-off, but beyond that nothing really stands out. Now like DLSS, the binary optimization is something that's going to mature. I'd say give it around 12 months and we'll see a lot more titles supported as Intel work with the developers. Importantly, it doesn't alter the source code, it simply rewrites the existing machine code, so it's very flexible. Now, not every title supports it yet, and some might never support it, depending on the complexity of the coding, so that is a bit of a TBC at the moment. Now, just going to talk about the 250K before we go to the clear winner of this launch, the 270K. When I looked at the titles that don't support IPPP, the performance gap between the 250K Plus and the previous gen 245K really narrows. If your focus is gaming and not playing those specifically supported titles, then you just about save some cash and grab the 245K if you are planning to build, especially as we'll likely see price drops on that CPU now the new models are out. Now on the other hand, if you're doing a lot of productivity, those extra 4 cores on the 250K Plus can really help. But honestly, if your focus is work, you might as well just jump to the 270K anyway, especially as it's so close to the 285K. Even without IPPP, the 270K Plus is still hitting the 285K level of performance in titles that don't support binary optimization. So if you're largely focused on productivity or mixed tasks, you still get the high-end punch without needing the top-end price, currently over £500 for the 285K. Now, another thing to point out, I did test against the 9800X3D. At the time of filming, that's £400. Obviously, clearly a gaming CPU. And while the 270K Plus is a fantastic hybrid and $100 or £100 cheaper, as more games adopt the optimization, it could only get better. And if you want a more real-world look, I've also got a 9700X versus 9800X 3D video with the Asus 9070 XT Prime. That also tested at 1440p, so if you want a bit more of a real-world scenario, I'll drop that on the card for you to check out as well. Now, when it comes to upgrading, you do need to think about the bigger picture. DDR5 at the moment is still very expensive, in some cases more than the CPU itself. And this is going to be the last generation of this socket for 1851. So if you're someone that upgrades every couple of years, it might be a harder sell. But if you're keeping a system for 3 or 4 years, or maybe you buy pre-builts, it does make a lot more sense. If you're someone that runs this as a business and does some creative work like animation or rendering, and you can write that off as a business expense, then that changes the whole budget calculation as well. Now, I do apologise, this video is a bit late. Retesting everything took multiple days, but I hope it's been useful for you. Quick shout out to Joey Image as well. I know you've been waiting for this one, so I hope you enjoy it. If there's anything else you'd like to know or something else that I missed and you want me to cover, do leave a comment down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to get subscribed and ding the bell so you don't miss any future uploads. I've got a lot more on the way. Links are in the description box below if you want to pick one up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.